Alrighty, guys, welcome in. We are doing a Dana White's Contender Series podcast. This is a special edition. So this is my friend Pierce Big Bird, the much awaited, much anticipated. Many people have been asking me if we're going to do this thing. So Pierce, why don't you let everybody know who you are, where you came from, who the hell are you?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be a part of this. Yeah, just another friendly member of the Discord. Looking forward to some fights this Tuesday. I know we got one of our darlings fighting in the main event, but looking forward to getting into this card with you.
You know, one thing I think is funny is you've been with me since the Telegram days. So before Santino and I started this way, way, way back. And I remember like, fuck this kid, because I used to run a free Telegram. And then the only rule was like, if we lose, no worries. But if we win, you got to tip me. And then I remember going, all right, dude, we won. So, I'm not going to tell you how much it is. You can give whatever you want, but you got to give a tip or I'm kicking you out of the room. And you were like, huh? Why? Like, I just remember you giving me some kind of resistance. I was like, fuck this guy. And then begrudgingly, I remember you gave me something and I was like, all right, you can stay, whatever. And then I just kept seeing your name pop up. And then you've been, such a great member over the years. You're the one that I tell everybody about, right? With the bare knuckle, the same night that I made my money, I told you, get on a plane, go fly to a different state, get a hotel room with your buddy, and put your life savings on it, right?
Yeah, I just to find out that I flew all the way to Colorado and I could have just drove an hour up to Virginia and could have bet the
No
same thing.
way.
But yeah, that was a we go way back to the Telegram days, back when I was a broke little degenerate doing the 10 leg parlays. But I've came a long way, and I'm starting to get
Man,
my
you
groove
you have
into
come
this
a
game.
long way, and I was telling somebody the other day. I think that you're kind of at the stage that I was maybe about a year ago. I think we're frozen up here.
Now you're good now.
Okay. I tell people that you're kind of at the stage where I was a year ago. Like every single day, I was like looking ahead 2 weeks. I have like things written down. Like I know who the matchups are, who's coming up. Like you are so on top of it. And because of that, man, you've been able to get some really great openers. You've been able to get some phenomenal lines. And I know you've been keeping track of everything on your Bet MMA tips. How's that looking?
Yeah, so we're a bit of a regression right now, but since January, it's like if y'all want to follow my Bet MMA tips, it's all free because it's like I'm not going to be charging money if I'm making money myself on the bets. But it's Big Bird UFC. We're up about like 95 units since January so far, so doing pretty well. And I've noticed, especially with Dana White's Contender Series and like other regionals, the openers you got to get ahead on the tape, and if you get ahead, then you're going to get blessed with these openers because some of these lines that the Bet Online releases are crazy, especially for this card too. I got some good openers, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, man, and you're right. And this is something I wanted to talk about too, if you have a moment. Pierce is still in school, guys, so everybody please comment and tell him to drop out. We don't need him to go to school. Uh, I remember training back in the day with I was on Team Megaton for a few years for jiu-jitsu. That's Mackenzie Dern's dad. And I remember telling him, he's like, why don't you come in more often? And I was training twice a day already at the time. And I was like, well, I'm in high school. Like, I have to go to school. I'm going to graduate and then I'll train afterwards. And he goes, man, why you go to school? Drop out of school. You want to be serious about jiu-jitsu? You drop out of school. Okay, Megaton. No, like, all right, I get it. So, Pierce, you don't need college, man. Making plenty
Already,
doing this.
already 3 years down, so why stop when I got one more year left to go?
Man, we only got so much time on this earth. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into this week. All right, let's kick it off. Do you want to do it the same style that Santino and I do it? Do you want to do a different format? How do you want to work this thing since we're figuring this out?
We can just go bottom to top, but I will say I don't know whose connection's off a little bit, but if we get a little laggy, just continue talking, I guess. But we'll start bottom to top.
Okay, I'd like to kick this one off if this is okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. So first up, guys, we have Charalampos. Oh, geez, how do you say his name? Grigoriou versus Cameron Smotherman. This, guys, I think this is probably my favorite spot on the card. This is probably my favorite spot on the card, considering the skill set and considering the line that we have here. Charalampos, it's funny. A few fights ago, he fought Escareno, who's one of the worst fighters I've ever seen. Um, and kind of gets by just on cardio and not dying, but one of the worst fighters I've ever seen. And Charalampos was like a plus 340 underdog to Escareno, which is pretty crazy to me. Now he's fighting Cameron Smotherman, and this line is pretty close to an even line. Cam has fought way, way, way better competition. People are going to point to his lack of grappling, and I really don't think it's a lack. I think this guy is a little bit arrogant when it comes to the grappling. He thinks like, they've made the comment in a few fights is, why do I need to do this? Why do I even need to do this? I just want to stand up and fight. So I think what he does is he lets people get in on him to kind of dismiss them, and then so he can stand up and start boxing again. So I don't think the kid lacks skills on the ground. I don't think he lacks awareness. I don't think he lacks volume. I think the kid is a stud. He's a superstar. And the only time he's really got beat was, Christian Strong, who's a phenomenal wrestler, a really, really, really good wrestler. He's had some close fights, some close moments, but man, the kid's hands are phenomenal. The kid has a swagger about him. He's the Fury FC champion. Charalampos is fine, right? He looks the part. He's shredded. He looks strong. He throws low kicks. But one thing that people don't consider is, first of all, one is styles. And two, people are forgetting to consider the opponents, right? Cam fought Peter Calabaro, who will beat Charalampos every single time, right? And he's an old guy. He'll beat all the guys that Charalampos has beaten, right? Charalampos only looked good when he fought a guy who was backing up, who was afraid to throw, would absorb leg kicks, couldn't wrestle. He didn't do a lot to control from the top. Now you have a guy in Cam, and this was the first thing that I wanted to watch. Does Cam press action or does he circle backwards? And I think you made this, and this was actually something that I was seeing too in the tape. Reminds me of Talbot. And you said this on the Discord, but it was something I was already thinking, is he presses constantly, but he manages range really, really, really well, and he counters really effectively. Their style is really similar. I think that Talbot is, although he's not as clean, he adds a lot more kicks into his game, where Cam is really a lot cleaner of a striker, but it's all hands. I just see a sitting duck target in Charalampos versus a guy who's going to stalk him, who's going to beat his ass. And I love a KO line from Cam. Man, I think Cam is a star in the making. And this is a great spot, great line for me. What do you think?
Yeah, so I saw that the line right now, I don't know if you mentioned, we have minus 160 Cam on DraftKings. It opened about like minus 300. And I kind of figured that there would be some buyback on Grigoriou, just because like you watch the Cameron Smotherman tape, and I know a lot of people are going to point out the poor grappling defense, but I feel like a lot of that's testament to, yeah, he does get taken down, but like a lot of, like you mentioned the Christian Strong, I think that's a lot better of a wrestler we have there than in Grigoriou. I mean, Grigoriou, he'll find takedowns, but it's not even like he has elite wrestling. It's a lot of like he'll catch a kick or his opponent slip. And I've seen in a lot of his fights, it's like he struggles to really control guys for long periods of times. And I see him, he jumps for leg locks. That's something you really don't want to see. But yeah, when you look at Smotherman, I get the vibe, like you mentioned with Talbot, the kid's special. I mean, he's a
star, man.
He has these intangibles where he just walks you forward, and he just has this it factor about him where it's like he's 24 years old. He's training with Rafael Stotts and Adrian Yanez. So he's in good company at the training room. And I like your thought on the KO, because the way Grigoriou fights on the feet, he's kind of a target. He keeps a high guard. He leaves the body open. I feel like the body shots for Cameron is going to be an important weapon here. And if he can kind of like stick to the game plan that C-Rod did when he fought Grigoriou, I can't help but think Cameron's going to pace this guy. And I guess maybe one knock on Cameron is that he can fight to the level of his competition. That was like kind of when he's fighting these grapplers from Fury. I know some people might not be high on the level of competition in Fury, but I personally see someone that's improving fight to fight. And you got a 31-year-old Grigoriou, and I think he's a finished product, whereas Cam kids getting better every fight. I feel like he's going to find the KO here.
Well, and there's a really big difference. So, what's funny is the Charalampos fight when he fought C-Rod. So I did a lot of tape because I love CFFC. I love all these smaller promotions. And it was when he was getting ready to fight Escareno. And I'm like, actually, no. It was the fight before that, I believe. I think he lost. No, that's the fight when he was fighting Escareno. And before that, I was doing the tape. And actually, no. sorry. It was when Christian was fighting Junior Cortez on Contender Series. That's how long ago it was. And I watched that fight. And that was the fight that made me a fan of Christian. So when Christian came here, the very first day he landed in Phoenix, I was like, yo, let me drive you around. Let's go hiking. Like you're going to be my friend now. Like, you're my best friend. And then now to this day, like, we're best friends. We talk every day. For what it's worth, guys, well, two things I want to say is, one, Christian's style is a lot different than Cam's style. Christian is a lot slower, a lot more methodical. He paces, right? And he kind of breaks you down systematically. Everyone's going to point to those leg kicks, but man, when there's one thing that you have to do, like, one thing that's countered by leg kicks is big punches, right? That's what, when you close that distance the way that Cam does, it's not enough space to get off a good leg kick, right? Good leg kicks are good at range, but once you get too close and you start closing that distance, now the hands are what take precedence. C-Rod stays at kicking range because that dude likes to throw head kicks, he likes to throw leg kicks, and then he kind of follows in with the Muay Thai stuff. That's a much slower paced fight. Smotherman is Smotherman, right? He's smothering you. He's always in your face. He's always throwing hands and he's firing back. So much different pace. And guys, for what it's worth, C-Rod official pick is Locamster. All right, let's move on to the next one. Big Bird, why are you so quiet now, man?
No, my bad. I was on mute. But I will say one last thing for this fight. C-Rod's on him, but I can't help but think since Smotherman throws the 3-4 punch combinations, that's probably going to separate him on the striking exchanges. So, I mean, I can't help. Minus 165 really does feel like a gift. I think that's the best spot on the whole card. Yeah,
me too. Because the rest of these fights seem to feel like, okay, this is what I wanted to talk about earlier, just UFC betting, right? You mentioned this, and man, I've been saying this for like the last 3-4 weeks. I think I'm like over UFC betting. Like, if we didn't run a Patreon and people were expecting only UFC, I'd probably be done with it altogether, because for me right now, the money's in regional MMA, it's in bare knuckle, it's in a lot of other things besides the UFC, because you can even have a flawless night, and then Dawodu gets Dawodu. That sucks ass, man. And the level of competition is so close. I think I'm about done. I like these Contender Series fights where it just is a glorified regional card, and you're trying to find every little thing and every like Instagram post or who has inside information, people that are willing to talk to you becomes your edge and that kind of stuff. And I really like that and enjoy it. It feels a lot more fun than guys that have had 10 fight UFC careers and it's just two high level guys swinging it out, you know?
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's like the UFC is such a big market when it comes to betting. I mean, you see the limits are a lot higher in UFC. It's hard to really get an edge unless you're betting these openers, whereas the regionals, you place like a $500 bet, you're able to move a line like 30, 50 cents. And it's like the markets where people aren't necessarily digging deep for the tape. Those are the ones I feel like we can get an edge at this stage in our betting career.
How many times we flipped the line? I just, for shits and giggles, 2 weeks ago, I was like, let's flip the Jeremy Stevens line, which ended up horrible for me, all our fake CLV. But, we could flip any line on the regional that we want. But, I don't try to artificially move it, right? It's only if I really feel it and really believe it, right? And then we'll tip it, and then the line moves. And then it creates a good opportunity to hedge out if you aren't feeling as confident and you do your own research. But, yeah, those openers are key, and getting the right number on these guys is super key. All right, let's move on. So I'll let you lead this one off. Next up, we have Paulo Renato Jr. versus Ibo Aslan.
Yeah, so this is one of the fights where the line has been bouncing around throughout the past day. So we got Paulo Renato, I believe he's at like plus 125 right now. And we got Ibo, he's around like minus 145. And I feel like this fight's pretty straightforward to tape. So you got Ibo Aslan. He's probably the side being brought in to win. I mean, you watch the dude's fights. He uses a lot of his power and his physicality to really bully opponents. Gets a lot of first round finishes. I mean, and then his one loss to Anton Turkalij, he was looking good for the first round. Then he just gassed really bad. Turkalij was able to find his way on top. And I guess with Ibo, he has a lot of like the looks when you're taping this guy. He looks like someone that the UFC could maybe build. He's from Turkey. That's a market they're looking to maybe build into. And I can't help but, because I think he's the rightful favorite, but it's like, I don't like the cardio I saw on his tape. And I did play Paulo Renato. I played his early line. I think it was like plus 145. And it's purely based on like a cardio narrative. I think Renato, maybe he's not the most physical light heavyweight. I mean, he did used to fight at heavyweight. He fought Jamal Pogues last year on the Contender Series. He is moving down. And I saw on his Instagram, he does look like he's in good shape. Looks like Paulo's got abs now. And I feel like if Paulo can get out the first round, I feel like his chance of winning goes up drastically. He has good leg kicks. I think that could be a good weapon here. I think he's a more technical striker. It's just a whether he can withstand the early storm from Ebo. And if it gets out of the first round, maybe look to live bet Renato. But I think his cardio and technical striking is going to carry him down the stretch to 29-28.
And you're saying that's for Paulo, correct?
Yeah.
I don't think this one is seeing the scorecard. So sorry, I wasn't not paying attention. I was listening to what you were saying, but one thing I was looking up was his Instagram. Because he's Turkish, but right, he lives and trains in Austria. Is that right?
Yeah, he has been down at I think he was at Extreme Couture for the past like 3 weeks or something. But yeah, he trains at Austria. He actually, his last fight in Austria, he had Bogdan Grad from last week as the referee in that fight. So that was pretty funny.
Okay, wait. Now I'm seeing a few things here. So he's followed by Showtime Group, which is my management company. So I might need to ask about that. 2, he's at Extreme. 3, Austria, right? I have a lot of connects in Austria now. A lot of my friends are from Austria. Here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing with Austrian and Turkish MMA. The scene isn't there yet. It's just not there yet. When I went there, right, I went with the Henzo Gracie team and training a lot. And I'm asking like, hey, I'm the only MMA guy. Like, how's the MMA down here? And basically what they told me is there's only one guy who's respected for MMA. Who's the big dude that fought Jan and broke his knee? Rakic. He's the only guy that's like lives in Austria that is like respected. Everybody else, they're like, so. Man, the same things I'm seeing on tape. So 1, Paulo Renato is tiny for heavyweight. Like he looked 3 weight classes apart from fat ass Pogues. It was crazy. 2, the guy's striking is honestly pretty clean and pretty beautiful. For being a capoeira fighter, right? And usually that's so much crazy and spinning stuff. The guy manages range really well. He counters really well. His leg kick timing is, I mean, honestly phenomenal. I guess the big question here is going to be his grappling. And honestly, I think on the feet, this is not a close fight. I don't think that Aslan is good on the feet. He looks big and he looks aggressive. That doesn't mean a lot for these guys, right? A lot of times, like you get the Renato Valentes of the world who are putting it on guys, like weird guys that have horrible bodies that just look bad, but they're game and they're willing to fight and throw high volume. As far as Aslan, I don't like the cardio from him, right? He gassed out from one takedown and then getting reversed by a guy who also kind of gasses out pretty bad in Turkolaj, how you say it? Man, I don't hate your Paulo Renato play at all. I love the Paulo Renato play. I think this fight doesn't go the distance. I think that one's pretty clear because Renato, he's either going to get knocked out early or he's got the cardio to keep that pace. And when Aslan gasses out, he's going to put that pace on him. I think he's going to look much better at this weight class. He was just too small and even then had a pretty impressive showing against Pogues, who has got good boxing, good jab, good fundamentals, and pretty athletic for being fat. Yeah, great play. I like Paulo Renato here.
Yeah, I will say I feel like they're going to probably set the over at 1.5, and I feel like if it goes under 1.5, it's probably Ebo. Over, it's probably Paulo. So, I mean, maybe late round Paulo props could have some value on him. I feel like Ebo's gas tank is a huge liability here.
See, the thing that concerns me, though, so I was just looking up that picture that you had mentioned at Extreme. So if he's only been there 3 weeks, not the biggest deal, right? How much can he actually know and how much can he get? But he's being invited into that private training with, the guy that we saw last week, Almeida, with Strickland, with all those guys. So if he's invited to that session, I mean, he's got to be able to hang with those guys, right? At least somewhat, right? Unless he's the easy round. But that concerns me just a tad bit here to be on the Renato side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a close fight. I don't really have a confident take on it, but if you're giving me the more technical striker that has more proven cardio, I'll take the dog odds all day. But yeah, Ebo could just steamroll this guy in round 1, and maybe he'll be a fade down the line in the UFC. He
just is awkward to me, man. He's one of those guys that looks like really big and physical, but they're just so boxy, like cardio kickboxing kind of thing. Like God, I don't know how to describe it. Like I guess like a more athletic, like Steve Mowry, right? He's a recent example. When I watch him strike, he's like so cardio kickboxing, like I don't know how to describe the body, but he looks athletic, like super athletic, and just whereas Renato looks fat and slobby, but man, he's a good clean striker.
It'll be a fun fight. Looking forward to it.
All right. Next up, we have Hyder Amil versus Emrah Sonmez. I'll keep this one short. I don't know how long you guys want these breakdowns and these opinions. So I feel like we're chatting a good amount on each. I like Hyder here, and here's why I like Hyder here. I don't hate a play on Sonmez at all. You really look at it; it's kind of the style to beat Hyder, right? Hyder struggles with takedowns, but 2 fights told me all that I needed to know, right? So one fight was Hyder's last fight against Chase Gibson. Now, I'm huge on Chase Gibson because it is really rare you have a guy that is a good striker, can wrestle, and has very high level jiu-jitsu to be able to hold and stabilize positions. And that's Chase Gibson. Chase Gibson, say what you want. The guy's got skills. He really does. So that first round, he got, taken down, got his back taken, and he stood there the entire time, wasn't able to get up. You watched the fight before that against Sewell, Dante Sewell, whatever, right? He's not settling in bottom position, right? He's standing right up. His hips looked good. A lot of things about that performance looked really, really good. The fact that was a split was criminal. Thought he won 30-27 really clearly, and a split, that needs to be investigated. Sonmez looked good, right? We picked him in that last fight against the kickboxer, but that was a horrible kickboxer, right? The guy only had striking with 0 takedown defense, and the dude was dead tired. Honestly, it all comes down to this. The Liam Giddens fight. Giddens is a 35er. Giddens is a small 35er. I'm sorry, a big 35er in a weird way. The second that Sonmez didn't have success in the takedowns, he quit, right? He got pushed up against the fence against a guy that had a little more dog in him. And honestly, you compare styles, Giddens and Hyder are like the same guy. I would say Giddens is a little bit more technical, but probably not as good in at defensive wrestling as Hyder. Hyder doesn't have great cardio, but he's willing to die with you, right? He is going to drag you to fucking hell and back, and he's willing to die, but you're going to die first, right? You're going to go first before him. So that Giddens fight, the second that Sonmez found resistance and then Giddens put it on him and finished him, that's kind of how I see this fight going too, is Hyder might get taken down once or twice, but he's going to scramble up. Sonmez doesn't have amazing control on the ground, even though his wrestling is good. The other thing too is Sonmez shoots from so far away, and that works on British style wrestlers, but not traditional guys that are in on the hips, right? He might get 1 or 2. I think Hyder gets back up, and I think Hyder dogs him. I'd really like a knockout Hyder here.
Yeah, so I did get a little bit of the opener on Emrah Sonmez. It was like plus 200. The lines came down a lot. I think it's like minus 165 for Hyder, plus 135 for Sonmez. I mean, I knew I was going to be suckered into the value for Emrah. I mean, I feel like in this fight, the best way, if you like Hyder, I feel like it's a live bet, because we see in a lot of Hyder's previous fights, especially the Gibson one, that's a perfect example. He got taken down early. But the thing about Hyder is that, like, he's like a Terminator, man. He really just walks you down, and it's like the body language for him doesn't look good, but it's like he doesn't get tired. He just looks tired, but the dude just walks you down, and he has constant output. And I mean, yeah, you said the Sewell fight. There's no way that should have been a split. But I mean, I like Hyder maybe like if it's a live bet scenario, but pre-fight, it's like it's hard not to see Emrah hitting takedowns early. I know Emrah has his flaws when it comes to maybe his cardio, which is a bit concerning for this fight. But, I mean, he's trained at a good gym, Great Britain top team. He's got some good training partners with Dominique Wooden, Nathaniel Wood, and then he's got Brad Pickett as his coach. Maybe I'm a little biased because we made money on him his last fight, but it was weird because his cardio actually checked out. I know Moschini in his last Cage Warriors fight isn't necessarily the most high-level fighter, but Emrah kept a high pace in that fight. And I feel like if his cardio holds up, he can maybe steal the first 2 rounds. It's just, like you said, Hyder has good hips. He does work up a lot, but I do see him get taken down a lot. And it's like, if Emrah, I guess the issue with Emrah is that like his control isn't, I wish it was a little bit better, but it's like, I think the price is pretty accurate right now at the minus 165. I wouldn't suggest a steam chase an Emrah bet, but yeah, if you like Hyder, I feel like just wait around and maybe live bet him or take his late KO props. But yeah, I like Emrah here, man.
Here's one thing that I kind of factor in when I'm looking at these kind of matchups. So I consider the style. Okay. I consider the style, and I think about myself as a grappler, and I think about myself as a fighter. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy that kind of learned how to wrestle, that has really good control and learned how to do ground and pound and add submissions. But I think of a guy like Emrah, and Emrah will take you down. He's got way better wrestling than me. The dude can wrestle his ass off. But once he gets there, Now what happens? And, if this fight were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'm like, oh, Emrah is the easy play. He's going to take him down all the time, and he's going to win based on takedowns, right? But now how judging is scored, this is the thing that I consider, right? Emrah could take Hyder down and control him for 4 minutes and 45 seconds. And then if Hyder gets up for 15 seconds and beats his ass, that's a Hyder round now. So this is kind of the thing when we were looking at the Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira fight that swung me. I was like, Benny, I think, is a better grappler than him. Just like accolades and like literally style. I think he had a lot to neutralize him. But Benny's path is going to be so much harder than Charles' path. Like Benny is going to have to go through hell for 15 minutes to win this fight. And he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's, and his defense has to be perfect on this fight and not get tired either. And so then I was like, man, that sounds like a way harder path than Charles getting taken down, standing back up and knocking him the fuck out, right? And that's kind of how I view this fight too, is Emrah might take him down. But the second that Hyder gets up, he's going to have to pay the piper, right? And just how they score fights, they're not giving a round to Emrah for holding him, but they will give a round to Hyder for knocking him the fuck out, you know what I mean? Or putting him on death's door. So on a line that's this close for me, I think the guy that just does more flair, more action, things that just look heavier is really important. Now, if it was Hyder minus 200, minus 300, different conversation, right? Now we're looking at maybe overs or we're looking at something different. But man, the guy who just does more. I like to bet on that guy, especially when he does have kind of like rock hips. This is the last thing I'll say on this. Meschini, one of those little kickboxers, right? He should take a lesson from the Peruvian kid, Borjas, that fight last week. You don't have to have good takedown defense. Honestly, I think that's a new evolution of the game too. You don't have to have good takedown defense, but your get-ups have to be perfect. If you get taken down and you pop right back up, that's probably almost more tiring than somebody defending a takedown, right? If you actually complete it and then they get right back up, that sucks. But Meschini really didn't. Once Meschini was down, he was down. He had brittle hips. He wasn't good. Now, Hyder, that dude has to be like legendary strong, right? You hit his hips, it's like hitting a brick wall. I think that's going to really mess with Emrah, especially when he's shooting from so far away. If he doesn't get those in those single legs and double legs in traditional wrestling, I think that dude is in some trouble here. So I like the Cam spot better than this one, but honestly, I think Hyder's a pretty nice play here.
I guess I will say, worth noting, I mean, Hyder is 33 years old, so he's kind of like a finished product, but I feel like a lot of this fight just comes down to whether Imrah's cardio can hold up, because, I mean, the Giddens fight and the Stevens fight were 2 years ago, so, I mean, he's 31 years old too. So, I mean, there is a possibility that his cardio is getting better. But, yeah, it's classic striker versus grappler matchup here. Whoever wins is going to look like a huge favorite.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say about that, because last week, so sorry guys not getting out of podcast last week. Someone messaged us on the Patreon. They're like, hey, these are the things we'd like to see out of you. And so guys, I'm going to try to do better, right? More breakdowns, more stuff, more content, more film. Like, I just got to be on it. I had some stuff that was going on. I'll be better now. But the one thing everyone was talking about last week was Almeida, right? Almeida's age. He's 35. Does that seem to be mattering less and less now?
Well, I mean, especially in the middleweight division, I don't think age matters at all, because that's probably the most least skilled division. But, yeah, I get what you're saying. I wouldn't say Hyder's past this. I think, if anything, Hyder's in his prime. But he's a good fighter. I mean, he's been with Gilbert Melendez most of his career. So it's like, they're going to come in there with a smart game plan. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Oh, really? I don't think so. I actually disagree with that altogether. Did you sorry, go ahead.
I've never actually watched a Gilbert Melendez fight, so I'm assuming he fights like an ape. But
no. What I was laughing at was, did you listen to Gilbert's commentary on Hyder's fight?
Dude, it's like he was trying to coach and commentate at the same time.
He was frustrated with Hyder. He goes, typical Hyder. He's just going to come in eating elbows all the time. The thing is, it's like, I think the thing that makes, so this is the problem. And Santino and I talk about this with like Alex Hernandez all the time. The thing that made him so great, when you change that, is the thing that's going to fuck him, right? That when he starts trying to be technical and beautiful and fight and put together a great 15 minutes, that's when he's horrible, right? He's going to lose to all the top guys in the division. When he says fuck it and he bites down on his mouthpiece and he goes out trying to murder you, that's when he's going to beat guys that are a lot better than him. And I think I think the thing that makes Hyder so great is he is just a dog, man. He's a Northern California, like Gilbert Melendez scrap pack dog. That's like his style. That's his game. Chase Gibson, more technical than Hyder everywhere. That little Moura kid was probably a little more technical than Hyder everywhere. But the dude is just a freaking dog. And the second that guys, if Hyder comes out trying to be like beautiful, I would say, man, go the other way. But if Hyder's going to just, bite down and do what got him to the dance, that's what makes him special. And that's what makes him good. Like we said, he's willing to drag people down and just be a dog. He's swinging squared up. His chin is up. He's punching like this. He's getting hit a million times. So he'll get taken down a bunch, but man, he dogs it out. And that's something that's honestly pretty impressive. Now, I can look like an idiot. He can go out and get chinned in 10 seconds, but man, he's fun to watch.
Yeah, man, looking forward to this kid. He's all action. So if he wins, it's going to be Trevor Peak style, just walking him down and breaking him.
Oh, that's rude. All right. Next up, we have Eduarda Moura versus Janaína Silva. Go ahead.
You want me to kick this one off first?
Yeah. We're just going back and forth. You could take main event too if you want.
Yeah, I don't really have too many thoughts on this fight because, you look at the Moura side, there's like one pro fight on the tape index, and it's like, I can't really take much away from her. Her amateur fight, which was, I would assume that was like 3-4 years ago. She gassed out really bad. It was in 2021, so that was 2 years ago. She gassed out really bad, and her striking's very limited. But when I look at this matchup, I guess it's Moura is probably the grappler, and then you got Silva, who's probably going to look to keep it on the feet, throw that 1-2. Silva's very limited in her striking, but I guess in women's MMA, the basics work. She kind of pops a jab out, overhand right. So I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Either Moura gets the takedown. But we haven't really seen Silva on her back too much from what I remember. So, yeah, striker versus grappler. I'm not really looking to pick a side on this. I think it's like minus 140 right now for Moura and plus 110 for Silva. So it's honestly probably a pass at these odds.
I think it's a pass for not even for the odds reason. I think it's a pass because we don't have enough available film. This girl, Eduarda Moura, we have, on tape index, we have 2 fights. You guys have maybe found more, but those 2 fights were enough to tell me that I really don't think this girl is very good. And if she wins, it's probably going to be because of her size. She's listed at 5'6", and she's like thick. How she makes 115 is beyond me. And then I was watching Silva, and I got it mistaken. I thought it said she was 5'5", but she's 5'1". Man, this girl's Eduarda Moura. Her tape is horrible, right? She come in, like this, and she swings wide, chin up, closing her eyes. Like everything about her tape was horrible. Where at least Janaína is competent, right? She moves well, she feints well, she does so many like striking fundamentals really, really well. And all of that is great, right? If fundamentals and that kind of stuff was good, Gloria de Paulo would be the champion of the world, right? She's super clean, and she lost to girls who suck because they're just annoying and they hang on you and they're just there and in your face, right? Claire Guthrie, she's like the best in the world and she's horrible at everything. I think it has to be a pass just from the available film. Probably a good live bet scenario. I would say that Moura, with her janky style, and her horrible striking, I assume she'll start to kind of fade out if she doesn't get takedowns and she's not successful. But it sucks we didn't really get to see any of her wrestling in that one pro fight because the girl jumped guillotine. So, man, I don't think she's very good. I think if anything, Silva's the play here. She's an underdog. She's coming from the LFA, which is the feeder league for the UFC. She's fought higher level competition. Even that last girl she fought was super athletic and super big. Honestly, probably a better striker. I'm talking myself into a Silva bet as we speak. I like Silva.
I guess, at the end of the day, I get why you want to play Silva. If you got the opener was plus 161, I wish I would have taped this fight before that, but that would have been a great bet. I guess the size is really throwing me off because she's like a Josiane Nunes where it's she's a little short little tank, but I feel like the size might play a big factor, so maybe pay attention to the face-offs tomorrow. And yeah, I can't hate a Silva bet. I'm certainly not laying the chalk on Moura.
No. All right. That's going to take us to the main event. And I know this is one that you have been excited for. If I have any beef with you over the years, here's the beef I have with you. We got to address this now. You fall in love with guys that we cash on, and you can't let it go. And sometimes you let yourself get biased on these picks. You love you some Miguel Baeza, that handsome bastard. All these guys that we cash on, Billy Elikana, we went a little too hard on him, and we got lucky there. But this guy, I think, is warranted. We love him. He's a darling of the Discord. He has always served us well. So go ahead on this one. Give us your pick for the main event. George Hardwick and Al-Selwady.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit. You didn't mention Charles Johnson with my darlings, man. A little bit embarrassed there. You forgot about that. But yeah, I feel like this is a pretty straightforward fight. I mean, we got, how do you say his name? Abdul Karim Al-Selwady. I mean, he's a good fighter. I mean, I don't think he's bad. He's coming out of a good gym. He's at Fortis MMA. And it's no joke what he's going to do. He's going to go for the takedowns, double leg takedown, single leg, and he's going to try to get off on his top time. But yeah, about George Hardwick, I mean, what's there to not like about George Hardwick? He does everything right. I guess people will point to his fight with Madar Flaminas, which was, if I can find the date exactly, it was 2019. So that's damn near 4 years ago. And people are probably going to point to that saying, oh, his grappling didn't look so good in that fight. Well, that was at 170. George, early in his career, he took fights at welterweight, and he's since moved down to lightweight. But, I mean, Madar Flaminas, for my Cage Warriors fans, he's a solid fighter, so I don't hold George losing that fight when he was like 22, 23 years old.
His record is insane right now. All the guys that he's beaten are literally the Cage Warriors. They keep bringing him in to lose, and he's like freaking Eric Mercado. He just keeps winning.
Yeah, I don't hold that loss that much against George, but I mean, what he does well, he does not let you breathe, and it's not like he's just walking you down like an ape, kind of like Amil. It's calculated pressure. The way George Hardwick fights his opponents, he really breaks them. He's the definition of you bet his round 3 props every fight. And it's just with George Hardwick, he has great left hooks to the body, a great jab. The only knock on him is he gets hit a lot, but I feel like that's kind of a part of the style. He just takes one to give one, and I feel like his pressure here, if Karim Al-Selwady does not find the takedowns here, I think he could be in a lot of trouble. And it's like, if you go back to George's Bellator fights against Soli, and I forget who the other one was, it was against Richard Kelly, he shows good grappling. I mean, I've seen him hit nice reversals off his back, and we can't forget the patented Hardwick guillotine. So maybe he can find the guillotine here. I like how he uses the guillotine to find his way on top, but as long as Hardwick stays off his ass, I feel like he's going to break Al-Selwady, and could be a sneaky submission spot because Hardwick loves to jump for that guillotine.
Yeah, good breakdowns. And I was nervous. So when we were chatting on the Discord, right, I'm thinking these are two guys that have always been A-sides their entire career. I think Al-Selwady took some time off for a long time and came back, and it was like a big deal when he came back and just steamrolling over guys. He's almost minus 1,400 every single fight that he's in. Hardwick, much tougher competition, but he's still, minus 300, minus 400 over really good guys. So you're like, all right, we have two A-sides here. And you think about it, not a lot of guys are outstriking George on the feet. So he's getting a power wrestler and a grappler. And you're thinking in your mind, like, man, what a horrible matchup for him. And then I started watching it, and I thought, what a great matchup for him. It gives him some name value. It's a guy that actually is good. He is competent, shows that he can win at a high level. Man, the guy, holy EPO on Al-Selwady, though, holy EPO. The fact that dude's shooting so many takedowns and he's not really getting tired. But here's the thing with George. George never overextends on his punches, right? He keeps a high guard. He never overextends. Everything is slow. It's not slow and plotting, but it's not full power. He's not throwing full power. He's not overcommitting, and that's why guys get taken down. Just to, for earlier, Smotherman, half the times he gets taken down is because he's trying to kill somebody. Or half the times that Hyder Amil is getting taken down is because he's one thing on his mind is trying to kill somebody. George doesn't do that. George sees everything. He keeps everything in front of him, and his eyes are phenomenal, right? Pity pats. Selwady was getting backed up by Michael Murphy. Now, I am not a Michael Murphy hater, but Michael Murphy is not George Hardwick. He was getting backed up, put against the fence, getting hit, even some takedowns defended by Michael Murphy. Honestly, the biggest tell to me here is that Selwady's not finishing Nick Compton. Nick Compton's 40 something years old, jiu-jitsu guy that pretends he used to box. Like, that's a bad look. He's not finishing Nick Compton. Meanwhile, he's George Hardwick over here finishing Kyle Driscoll, who looked world beater in his last fight. He's finishing all these guys. He fought Lucas Copera, and Copera's not good as a complete MMA fighter, but he's got a 7-8 minutes of fucking fury where his striking is good, his judo is good, and he learns how to mix it with wrestling and even jiu-jitsu round 3 heel hooks, right? The thing that was so impressive is that Copera got a takedown, and Hardwick did, as soon as his butt hit, he did a hip heist and got up right on top of him, right? His grappling looked good. His back takes were clean. He didn't get too high. And then my favorite thing about him, because this is how my game is now, and you said it, he uses guillotines, but not to finish guillotines. He uses them to get to the top. And amongst other things, I think that is the lost art of MMA too, and that's going to come soon, right? He's using guillotines to get on top, not staying on your back trying to finish him, because honestly, finishing guillotines is at such a low rate. It's got to be like 6% or something like that, right? For how many are attempted.
Yeah. Unless you're Gabriel Bonfim, then it just fucking works every fight.
Yeah, I guess. And that guy just has the perfect recipe of squeeze and strength and everything. But George uses it to come to the top. The dude is legit, man. This is, I think this is a prime time spot for him. There's a reason he's the main event, and it's not from Al-Selwady. It's from Mr. George Hardwick. I was mad at the matchup. I wanted him to have an easier fight because we just need him in the UFC. Any way he gets there, I don't care. But man, I like me some Hardwick here.
Yeah, I guess I will say the price. I was wishing we would get a better price because Al-Selwady has a good record. It's minus 315 on DraftKings, minus 340 on BetOnline. I'm not a big fan of the price, but at the end of the day, it's like George Hardwick, he really just comes off as one of those guys where he's like his fight IQ, because if y'all don't follow him on Instagram, it's a great follow. He does a lot of fight breakdowns, and you can just tell by the way the guy talks. He's a very smart and intellect individual, and it's like I just feel like George is way too smart to lose this fight.
I love analytical fighters like that. And actually, one last thing I wanted to say just on the film study. This could get him hurt someday. But when guys shoot in on him, his underhook goes in right away, right? He's defending the leg so good with such a clean underhook, and it just stops guys' shots. Where that's going to get him into some trouble is he starts going for an underhook and some guy comes with a check left hook. That's going to get him into some trouble. But for now, against Selwady, who's got short arms and shoots from distance, man, that underhook is key. All right, so I think we got all our picks. Is there any parlays, any plays that you really like sticking out more than the next?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we can end this segment with some betting tips or maybe like our best bets. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel like everyone is going to want to parlay George Hardwick, whether that's with someone on this card or maybe someone on the UFC card later this week. I feel like George is a good parlay piece, but maybe like a way to attack him. ITD, maybe. I can't help but think if Selwady's stuck on the feet with George, he's probably going to get knocked out. I mean, Selwady gets knocked out, and he's been knocked his last 2 losses, first round knockouts. So I can't help but think George finds the finish there. And then, like you said, Smotherman KO probably will be a good price, and maybe the point spread on Smotherman. I just can't help but think he's gonna smash this dude up if he keeps it on the feet. And yeah, I mean, Renato's not a bad dog. Sonmez, the line's kind of accurate, so I wouldn't force a bet on him. But yeah, best dog is Renato, and then Smotherman and George.
Done. All right, for me, yeah, it's Lil Campster inside the distance. Honestly, I think Renato inside the distance, Hyder inside the distance, and Hardwick inside the distance. I mean, all these guys, I don't see a lot of these going to decision just for the fight styles. The only one I could see possibly going is Amil and Sonmez, just because they both get so freaking tired that they don't have enough power to finish each other. But I think Renato, Hyder, Smotherman, Hardwick, all inside the distance. Great plays. Spreads even.
Yeah, awesome. Can't disagree with those. But yeah, looking forward to this card. I see a lot of violence. I mean, it's not the most high-level Contender Series card, but I can't help but think it's a lot of action fights, and we're going to be in for a treat on Tuesday.
Big Bird, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for doing this with me. Is there a place that we should follow you? I know we had always talked about building up your channel, and now we'll be able to do it because you're on the main channel. So place we can follow you.
Yeah, so I'm fine with just my YouTube. It's Big Bird UFC. I'll post occasional breakdowns, more so on the regionals. I mean, we're so saturated with a lot of UFC breakdowns that it's like there's really no point of getting into that market. But yeah, regional breakdowns, and then my Bet MMA tips. is Big Bird UFC as well. So give me a follow on there. I post free bets. We're not charging nobody. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for the platform, Brandan.
One last thing before we go. Can you do the Leon Edwards impression?
Nah, I'll save that for next week if George Hardwick wins. We need a Brit to win to be able to do that.
Wow. All right. Well, we're keeping the audience wanting more. All right, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And then we'll see you this week for the breakdowns.
Peace.